it's nothing to dwell on. It's speaking of a state that happens that brings about to the people to come to a point that God is going to bring judgment on the world. And that's really the takeaway that we should have from these first couple of verses here in Genesis chapter 6.
I had a professor once that told me over his lifetime he had held every view of who the sons of God were in Genesis 6. But what I think what I can say fairly straightforwardly is that it's not a good thing simply because of the next couple of verses. So I want to go ahead and read the next two verses, which is the verses just after the sons of God and the daughters of men passage are Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, which says this: Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So, Steve, it says here in verse 5 that every intent of the thoughts of human heart was only evil continually. How much room is there in that verse for any good in humans?
There is none in this verse here. Now, I want to point one thing out is that this verse is often referred back to when talking about mankind in general. And it's referred in other types of doctrines to show, see, the heart of mankind is nothing but evil in it in general. But I think that this is talking about a particular group of people before the flood. Now, that doesn't mean that man doesn't have a sinful nature and that man doesn't have a distance from God. But I think that sometimes this is used in other proof texts to say that mankind in general is evil, so evil to the point that nothing can be done for him. So I think that this particular point is talking about a group of people prior to the flood. Can it be transferred to everybody after the flood? I don't know. I think that's open for question.
Well, what I would say is that what it doesn't mean is that humans couldn't do anything, because we just saw in some of the previous verses, there were people that were great musicians, great workers of bronze, farmers that were successful raising crops. So the what's been called by some theologians depravity of man, one of the passages they use is this one here: every intent of human heart was only evil continually. I would agree with you, Steve. It's specifically talking about this group of people at this time here. And but I think no theologian would ever say that people couldn't do something that we would call in a human sense good. What it's saying is that this group of people was only thinking about things that had a sinful motivation behind them. And that's what it's talking about. Now, there's parallels to that over in the New Testament, specifically Romans chapter 3. And if anybody wants to read that, go to Romans 3 and start in verse 10 and read through about the next 7 or 8 verses. And you're going to find there some similar types of sounding language where it says that all of man's thoughts are evil, that there's no good, none are good, no, not one. And so the teaching of Scripture that all people are sinful, I think, is very clear. Now, what it means by every intent was only evil, well, we have, like, for example, the questions that come up sometimes, well, if I go feed the poor, isn't that good? Well, sometimes, yeah, I can do a good deed for an evil reason. So I'm going to go do some charity work, but I'm only really doing it for my own selfish good, right? So there's things like that am I doing it to really honor God and because of the needs of the poor person, or am I just doing it for a selfish reason? So all these come into play with the questions. The passage, though, in Genesis 6, quite clear, is that at this point in time, people were sinful, and it's getting worse. And that's going to lead up to the flood.